Shalom, shalom, family, Most High in Christ. Bless, peace and love out there to all of my family. I hope all is well with everybody today, and welcome to another edition of the broadcast. We are happy that you are able to join us and hope that we will give you some insightful information today on things that are going on around us. So as we get ready, let's get our music set. And so today we're going to speak on a few things. Most notably, we're going to talk about the, I hate to use the word racial divide, but it is a topic that stands out amongst all nations. And even though there are all types of different nations, the world is subjugated through skin color and culture. You understand? And so the skin color is the issue of the day in society. And so it relates to the way certain people are treated, certain things get done, certain people are set up, and the way that justice is dispensed. And so we're going to look at a little touch on that part of it, how justice is dispensed between the racial divide of the skin color. Okay, and then we're going to look at a little politics, a little Canadian politics of a looming catastrophe that's about to erupt. But as I said, that's Canadian politics, but it's in the news and it's something prevalent to a lot of us who are here, and it's something that we should touch on. Although the Bible says we should not partake in politics. I'm not partaking in it, but I'm just bringing it to the view and attention of those concerned, because as I said, we are involved in the outcome of everything that they do. All praises. And then another topic of interest that I'm going to speak on is, as I said, injustice. But this time, the injustice of the legal system. Because, as I said, certain races are favored through certain things, and the legal system is one of those venues in where the disparity takes place. And so we're going to touch on a little bit of that. And then also, it wouldn't be right if we don't touch on your friendly neighborhood Mr. Policeman and take a look at all the foolishness that went on in this certain video, where we would see again the injustice at work, more so the injustice. But we will get the gist of it when we get to the video. But let's start off with, as I said, this clip that we're about to see. It speaks reference to the audacity, the will, and the power of the Edomite. When something happens and they cannot get a resolution and understanding, or can't bring a reason to what caused the situation, they cannot sleep at night. They toss, they turn, and it's like something took grasp of them, and I don't know, they just go crazy. But let me get the slide set up so that we can get the understanding of what I'm talking about. And so here we are reading this Canadian press news put out, and it says Quebec police to give update on a 1975 murder investigation after identifying suspect. From 1975, this is the year 2023. All praises from 1975. This is the year 2023. And Edom hasn't slept one night since this incident took place. And they could not get a perpetrator, they could not get a suspect, they could not get anybody to blame this on. Because back in 1975, although the situations were dire against the so-called black man, I guess this particular situation, they couldn't frame up anybody because let's be honest, anytime anything happens in the way of crime in any community, the first suspect is always the so-called black man. And if a lack of a black man is always the people of color, some lower class, you understand? But as I was saying, from 1975 in Quebec, this murder took place. And so, more than likely, it was an Edomite female who would have gotten killed. And they had, I would assume, a lot of people of interest. But because, as I said, they could not associate any so-called black person with the incident, I guess that's why they never really pinpoint and say, okay, we have a suspect. But for all of these years, let's count that 75, excuse me, 5 is 80, 20 is 2000, 23 is 43, and 5, 48 years later. 48 years later, they're still active on this case. So this must have been some popular Edomite or some very powerful Edomite family. Because 48 years later, they are still investigating, trying to find leads and pin this on someone. I find that very interesting. Very interesting. But let's read it. It says Montreal / police in a Montreal suburb. There you go, suburb. Scheduled to provide an update today on the investigation into the 1975 slaying of a 16-year-old girl after exhuming the remains of a suspect earlier this month. My goodness, man. Edom goes to the lengths of the earth. You see what they did? They're exhuming the body of a dead man as a suspect. Is this not the height of ridiculousness? A 16-year-old female, God bless her soul, whoever she is, I don't know whether she Edomite or she is of the so-called black descent, but God bless her soul all the same. Her life was cut short by means of man and his doing, but I don't understand. 48 years later, they are still so concerned with this situation because it's, as I said, it's an inherent trait in them. They are lords of the earth, kings of science, masters of all things. And because they could not find any leads, any information, any iota of anything to pin on somebody, they could not rest. And that's how they are. They must have a resolution, an answer for everything that presents itself to them. And what science cannot solve, it is something impossible. Because in their minds, science is the answer to everything. Because you see, back then, their level of science was top notch, but it was not what it is today. So 48 years later, they feel now that they have the means to get the answer. So they're going now to exhume a dead man's body. And my thing, who gave them, this authority to go and dig up this man's body? I mean, it's a hokey pokey court system. The justice system is crazy. Let's be practical. If that was a teenage so-called black girl who was killed in a black community. Do you think the police would have gone to these lengths to even worry about her? She was just another statistic. Just another statistic. But 48 years later, they're going not just pin it on somebody, but they're going to exhume a dead man's remains who they preclude to be a suspect. And so there they are with their science, as I said. They're going now to go and dig up in his body, find some DNA, find something to say, well, okay, yeah, this man, he was in proximity of this young girl during the time that she went missing, and XYZ. Well, I don't know how they're going to fix it, but their Scientology, as far as they're concerned, is the reason, understanding of everything. And it further reads, it says, her body was found 3 days later in a wooded area in Longueuil, I guess that would be Quebec, on Montreal south side shore. Last June, DNA evidence led police to suspect Franklin Maywood roaming in her death. You see? They suspect, they said last June, DNA. That's it. DNA evidence led police to suspect Franklin Maywood roaming in her death. Like I say, brothers and sisters, let's be clear. If in fact it is an Edomite young girl that was killed, and at the time she was in Quebec, so we know 48 years ago, there was hardly no so-called black man who they could pinpoint this murder on. That's why it ran for so long, unsolved. Now, because this Edomite, I'm sure he is an Edomite, he died. Nobody to fight against them, pinpointing their finger on him and saying, okay, this man is the one who would have kidnapped or would have killed, or however he did his crime, I don't know, but they're going to say now he is the person that did it. This man lived 48 years later, he's dead now. Now they're going to dig up in his remains and say he's the one, just to satisfy their pride. That's it, just to satisfy their pride. And I mean, give some comfort to the family. But yeah, that is their answer to everything, man. But as I said, had it been a so-called black teenage female went missing, turned up dead, first thing they say, oh, she was out with a gang member, or she was running away, or she was selling her body, or she was on drugs. Just another statistic. No way in the world 48 years later any police officer would have been still holding on to that case. No way. But that is the way the system has it designed. Privilege. All praises, it is privilege. But yeah, I hope they close the case and they get their man. Because if they didn't get him in life, they won't get him in death. The Most High will deal with him. He will, but they can surely bet he would be dealt with. All praises. So yeah, that is something I just can't understand. Let's finish read. It says, where am I? Rumi, who died in 1982 at the age of 36, was exhumed from a West Virginian cemetery in early May for DNA testing intended to confirm his link to the crime. Police say Romain, who had a long criminal record, was in Montreal at the time of the killing, but was never suspected in Pryor's death. This report by the Canadian Press was first published May 23, 2023. And it says the Canadian Press. And there you have it. conclusive evidence, because the man died in 1982. The girl went missing in 1975. So 48 years later, they're coming to the conclusion that this man who died in 1982, how much years is that? 82 and 8 is 90. 10 for 2000. So that's 33 and 8. 41 years, if I'm correct. So 41 years later, they're just now suspecting this man to be the perpetrator in this crime. Impossible. Impossible. This evidence has to be damning for them to say right out, 41 years later, this man is responsible for this. And it has to be damning because for a court to give them priority and authority to go and dig up this man's dead body, and I'm sure it's against the will of his family, but either might stick together. He's dead now, you know, and they want to comfort that grieving family that lost the daughter and never got any answers as to why and who did it. But as you see, they say he was a long time criminal with a long criminal record. So again, as I say, they didn't get him in life. The Most High has him in death. They can rest assured he's going to be dealt with accordingly. All praises. So let's move on to our next topic. We are going to look at everybody's favorite family. If you can remember that old saying that your parents used to tell you, never take sweets from a stranger smiling in your face. Never take sweets from a stranger smiling in your face. And that is the truth when you look at this picture here. For those of you who are not aware, this is a former Governor General of Canada, Benson. This is the Deputy PM of Canada, and this is the PM of Canada. Okay? So these three together are suspected of being in a collusion to disavow information and to sway the public interest away from a big scandal that is taking place right now within this administration, the Trudeau family, and various organizations that the Trudeau family owns, operates, of which Mr. Trudeau, that they're saying would have stepped down from. So the public speculation is out there. The rumors have been cast. The die has been thrown. And so this Johnston fellow was appointed as a special, what's the word they call him? Repertoire, to say whether the now government in power, of whom he was a former member and involved in the family business of the Trudeau organization. And here it is, he was appointed to say whether they should give answers to the speculations at hand. But for me, I can only speak for me. I don't see where that makes sense. You know, you find a buddy of yours and you put him in a position and you say to the people, oh, this man is gonna say whether there is reason why we should answer to some speculation or there is no reason. But it's your buddy. Just from the photo you could see all the smiles, all the buddy, all the collusion, But let's read it and let's see what it says. It says the man charged with recommending how best to deal with foreign interference in the Canada's federal elections will finally say whether he believes a public inquiry is necessary. Okay, so it's as I said, he's been charged with where to find out whether to deal with foreign interference in Canada's federal election or not. And so the speculation is that Mr. Trudeau, being Prime Minister of the country at the time, would have been elected through interference of the Chinese, of whom his family's organization, headed by his brother, would have been said to have taken millions of dollars from the Chinese. This is the speculation now, not my saying, but if we would have listened to the now leader of the opposition, he made these speculations in the House of Parliament. So don't quote me as being the person saying such things or spreading the rumors. These were said by the opposition in power, namely the leader, Pierre Poilievre. So let's read on. And former Governor General David Johnston, the elderly gentleman in the picture that I showed you, the special rapporteur appointed in March by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau himself, will issue an interim report Monday on what he considers the best way forward. And as I said, a friend, a colleague, a former business partner, former member of your government or your party, and you appoint him. He's not an independent person to say, okay, I will investigate or look into this independently. He has ties, he has bias. I mean, in my eyes, because as I said, everybody is waiting to hear the outcome of these speculations that were laid upon the Prime Minister. Nothing was directly cast against him, but the speculation is made that his family's organization received funds to help him in the election. From the Chinese to help him in the election. And now they're concluding that there was foreign interference from the Chinese, which helped to elect Mr. Trudeau as Prime Minister. So that is the thing that everybody wants to hear about. So this interim rapporteur appointed would just be a prelude to getting the door open to actually investigating that allegation. Okay? So let's read on. It says Parliament Hill has been seized for months with whether Johnston will advise a public inquiry into whether the governing liberals did enough to confront claims that China meddled in the 2019 and 2021 elections. So pardon me, it's 2019 and 2021 and they're stating this would have taken place. Okay? And so we know that Mr. Trudeau would have won both of those elections. So for some unseen reason, they feel that, some foreign entity, namely the Chinese, would have been meddling in those elections to allow I don't know how, but, albeit the fact they say that he won both of them through some unscrupulous means. Again, I say, I don't know how, but that's what they're precluding. Well, let's read on. It says, but his mandate allows for broader recommendations as well. Because as I said, you see, broader recommendations because they want to get at this Justin Trudeau matter. But it says, and Johnston will announce his preferred courses of action during a long-awaited news conference at noon Eastern Time. And if you're following, that would have been yesterday. Okay, that would have been yesterday, but I doubt that would have taken place, it being a public holiday and all. But, you know, it is what it is. Let's read further. It says, in addition to the inquiry question, Trudeau also tasked Johnson with recommending any other mechanisms or processes needed to reinforce Canadians' confidence in the integrity of our democratic institutions. Okay, there you have it. The Canadians' confidence in the integrity of our democratic institutions, namely the Democratic Party. Where is this? Namely the Democratic Party on the whole. Because you see that the Liberals, I don't know, they are, well, again, I'm not getting into politics, so let's just read what we have in the front of us and let's leave politics to the politicians and to those that are interested in it. But for me, I follow the script, and the Bible says we're not supposed to get into it, so let me not take personal interest or give opinions to sway people in their thinking. Okay? But let's just read what we have. It says, his mandate also called for an assessment of the extent and impact of foreign interference in Canadian elections and to determine what the government did to defend Canada against electoral. And let me see if I can remove this. Unfortunately, it appears I cannot remove that so that I can get. Let me try to enlarge in. Yes, that works. So it says his mandate also called for an assessment of the extent and impact of foreign interference in Canadian elections and to determine what the government did to defend Canada against electoral interference. Opposition Conservatives are clamoring for an inquiry. Leader Pierre Poilievre refused to meet with Johnston, describing the role of Special Rapporteur as a fake. Okay? Said he describes the role of Special Rapporteur as a fake job. Poilievre is deeply skeptical of Johnston, a former member of the Pierre Elliott Trudeau Foundation. There you go. So that is the foundation that our now Prime Minister's family, head, management, and running. And the speculation is that they would have received funds from the Chinese government, which they now link to helping Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to get elected in both of those past elections. Right? So again, it says Poilievre is deeply skeptical of Johnston, a former member of the Pierre Elliott Trudeau Foundation, which is under scrutiny for accepting a donation reportedly linked to the Chinese government. An inquiry, while giving the government the chance to defend its actions, would also give the controversy more political oxygen. And what that means is it opens more room for deeper speculation. Because if he feels there is merit for an investigation, That means now there's grounds for them to go full force against the allegations of what was said against the Prime Minister and his family's organization. And it reads on. And it would be the second such investigation into the Liberal government in as many years. Yes, stemming from the 2019-2021 elections. So this is a big can of worms that's brewing and building in Canada. Because for all intents and purposes, Mr. Trudeau is a very much likable individual in Canada, despite all of the shortcomings that people keep saying about him, all the speculation. This would be a very serious and dire situation if it was to be called corruption against him, his party, and his family's foundation. That would spark widespread repercussions throughout the whole country, the whole nation, as far as the US, because, you know, they're precluding that Russia had interfered in their elections. So whatever mechanism this individual comes up with in his recommendations, I guess he could recommend to the US government also, so that they could use it to come up with an answer to their situation. But as I said, Mr. Trudeau is a very well-liked individual among the grassroots Canadians, among the migrants, among the, what's that word? I forget that word right now, but when it comes back to me, I'll tell you. But yes, that would spark a very big international disaster, because it would question all of the policies that they would have made, all of the deals that they would have signed, all of the meetings that they would have sat in. When I say they, I'm speaking liberally in regard to the now government headed by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, because everything that he did is speculative of the party as a whole. So we will sit and wait and see what the outcome of that would be and how it relates to us, people in this country. Because to right the wrong of two elections, I mean, I don't even know how they would go about dealing with that. Because of the first inquiry to the 2019 election is said to have been meddled with, what would they do? Second one is easy to fix. But what would you do about the first one? There would be sour grapes amongst politicians, because they would feel they lost their opportunity and their chance to what would have been a great momentous achievement, because they would have been robbed out of their prime ministerhood. But we leave that to the politicians, as I said. I just thought I would bring that to light because, as I said, it affects all of us as a people in this country. And it has widespread ramifications all across the globe. But again, we leave that in their hands, as the Most High has commanded. And so I have a little snippet here I want to bring forward in regards to what I was talking about earlier with that young female that would have been killed. And when I say about the injustice in the laws, 48 years later, they would have went all out to find a suspect for this killing of this young Edomite female. But here we have our brother George Stinney. All praises. Let me open this up so I can read it. And we did the search and we came across our brother George Stinney. And if you read it, it's from Wikipedia. And it says, George Junius Stinney Jr., October 21st, 1929, he was born, to June 16, 1944, he was killed, was an African-American boy who at the age of 14 was convicted in a proceeding later vacated. Not only was he convicted, they didn't give you the full story. It said it, when you read other writings, other news posts, it says it took the jury 15 minutes to find him guilty. They just looked at him and said, nah, this boy is guilty. Why? Does that look like the face of a two-time killer, two-time murderer? Because he's accused of killing 2 young Edomite girls. And this was in 1944. Okay? But let's read it. It's in a proceeding later vacated, meaning it was quashed, it was taken away from him. He was not guilty, not the person whom did the killing. And it says, as an unfair trial, vacated as an unfair trial to a young boy who was killed for no reason. I can call that murder. Because back in 1944, we knew what the circumstances were surrounding that. It's like I said with the Edomite girl that was killed back in 1975. Look at the disparity in date, 44 to 75. The circumstances were way different then. In 1944, this young brother had no hope. No hope other than the Most High. Okay, and we can see this would have been taking place in a town which was riddled with so-called black people. So any crime that would have taken place, who are you going to point fingers to? Obviously to the black man. They always committing crime. They're raping the white women. They're killing one another. They're taking drugs. They're selling drugs. So that's the first place you turn to. They turn to this little 14-year-old boy and accuse him of murder, and they murdered him. Okay? And let's read it. It says, for the murders of 2 young girls in March 1944, Betty June Bickner, age 11, and Mary Emma Thames, age 7, in his hometown of Alculu, South Carolina. Boom, there you go. South Carolina, his hometown. So that tells you he's a teenage boy, his family is there. Their hands were tied. Isn't that what it says in Deuteronomy 28? Our sons and our daughters shall be taken from us. It says, no man can save us. Further reads on, it says, he was convicted, sentenced to death, and executed by electric chair in June 1944. My goodness. The murder happened June 16, 1944, and in June 1944, he was convicted, sentenced to death, and executed by electric chair. Nothing else in the middle there. No appeal, no retrial, no stay of execution, nothing. all happened consecutively. He was convicted, sentenced to death, and executed by electric chair in 1944, thus becoming the youngest American with an exact birthday confirmed to be sentenced to death. He even set a record. Edom is so meticulous and so dangerous. They recognized and noted this young man's death for posterity. Sentenced to death and executed in the 20th century. I tell you. Further, it reads, a re-examination of Stinney's case began in 2004. You see that? From 1944 to 2004, 60 years later, the Most High touched somebody's heart and caused them to see the injustice and bring light to this. And it says a re-examination of Stinney's case began in 2004, and several individuals and the Northern Eastern University School of Law sought a judicial review. So for those who are not familiar with this school is located in Boston, and it is a school which does social injustice. It looks at cases of legal injustice, cases of, they delve into these matters where they feel that some injustice would have taken place in the legal system pertaining to, I don't want to say the wrong word, but less fortunate individuals. So persons who they feel would have gotten a wrongful sentence or conviction because they did not have the means to be well represented, they would take on certain cases to try to help them to get an appeal or a retrial or free from the conviction that they were convicted of. And so this is the case of our brother Stinney. Albeit he was already killed, but again, this is the power of Edom, the all-knowing masters. They want to correct every wrong that they feel that they have the power to do, because it was their system that sentenced him unfairly. So now they feel that they have the authority to overturn the powers that be. They wield the might. I'm sure for 60 years, his family was crying and grieving and shouting injustice. You see, 48 years they were investigating for that young girl. 48 years they were comforting her family. I know nobody comforted this young man's family when they took his life. Unfairly. Publicly. And when I say publicly, I don't mean the execution. I mean the act of them signing his life away, giving the authority to him being executed within 14 minutes of trial. Never have I seen it until then. But let's read on some more. And it says, and several individuals on the Northeastern University School of Law sought a judicial review. Stinney's murder conviction was vacated. All praises. In 2014, as I said, 60 years later, after this young brother would have been dead, his family would have suffered the pain and the shame, because you know the way they treated his family after they would have said that this young man would have killed these Edomite girls. You know, those Edomites gave them hell if they were allowed to stay in that town, I should say, because more than likely they would have had to move, because that town would not have been at ease. Too of their beautiful little darlings were killed by this old good-for-nothing Edomite. Negro. Then your family want to be around here crying for him? No, sir. They would have had to leave. Sure of it. But let's read on. It says 70 years after he was executed. 70 years, saints. Forgive me, my match was off bad. I'm saying 60. They said 70. You know, they all knowing that's Edom. So it says, with a South Carolina court ruling that he had not received a fair trial and was thus wrongfully executed. Well, there you have it. Took Edom 75 years to admit that the mistake was made. The injustice took place. It was a clear cut and dry case of injustice. This young child was taxed with the murder of two young Edomite girls. However, they got to the conclusion that it was him. I don't think they presented any evidence, because back then they wouldn't even have to waste their time looking for evidence. Just find a black nigger and say, or this black nigger was seen in the area where they was last seen, or he was found in the area where they were found. Boom, there you have it. You don't have your suspect, you have your killer, as far as they were concerned. And so the injustice took place. He was convicted within 14 minutes, sentenced to death within 14 minutes, and executed by electric chair. All within the same year that the incident happened. And it wasn't even a year. It was within the same year. Because as I said, there was no retrial, no stay of execution, no appeal, nothing. Sentenced and duly killed. Our brother George Tinney. May the Most High reap his soul. All praises. So, yeah, this is the disparity, saints. The young Edomite girl, she gets justice 48 years. But our brother died immediately for the injustice, wrongful. I tell you. So let's look at this next incident. Let's see what the outcome of this is. So this incident is an incident where a young Edomite man, was shot to death by sheriff's deputies. Okay? And so let's read this story. And it says, the parents of a 22-year-old Colorado man killed by a sheriff's deputy while suffering a mental health crisis will get $19 million from government, state, and local agencies and changes to how officers are trained under a settlement announced Tuesday. My. You see that? They don't only get the money, but they get recognition. They get to change the departments and the way they function under a settlement announced Tuesday. So you see the power that the Edomites sway. You see the injustice that happens to the people of color. You see how they feel one another's pain, but they don't feel the pain of the so-called black man and the other people of color? Let's finish reading. It says the shooting of Christian Glass after his SUV became stuck in the mountain town of Silver Plum last year drew national attention and prompted calls to reform how authorities respond to people with mental health problems. Okay, read on. As part of the settlement, Sally and Simon Glass. Okay, Simon and Sally Glass also negotiated for changes they hope will prevent another family from suffering a loss like theirs. But reading this, I am trying to figure out what makes Sally and Simon Glass so special and their son that would have been killed. This is just one incident, one in the drop of a whole sea. Every year we have multiple incidents where our brothers and sisters get killed needlessly. Unarmed, armed, doesn't matter. The intention that the officers use when approaching our people and people of color is to kill. We've seen it over and over when they go to situations where it is found out to be that it's an Edomite involved, where he's armed or unarmed. They try their darndest and God's best to bring that individual in alive because they want to save their lives. But the heck with another nigger, another so-called black man. We could use less of them. They're a scourge on the community, on a problem to us. So what they do, come out with guns blazing, intent to kill. And it's not always by guns, but it's by some intent that they use harm and force to kill. But we see here, this family gets 19 million. They get the recognition from government agencies to say that they were wrong. And they get to change the policies and operations of government, state, and local agencies when training officers. But that's not all. Let's read on, and we'll see the kicker. The shooting of Christian Glass after his SUV became stuck in the mountain town of Silver Plum last year drew national attention and prompted calls to reform how authorities respond to people with mental health problems. As part of the settlement, Sally and Simon Glass also negotiated for changes they hope will prevent another family from suffering a loss like theirs. Clear Creek County will establish a crisis response team, and a sheriff's office will train and certify all deputies in crisis intervention, according to documents released by their attorneys. So now, they get the money, they get the apology, they get the recognition, they get to implement procedure. Okay? But that's not all. Where's the money coming from for all of this that they're going to now implement and initiate? You see? From the same people who they hate, who they kill. From the lowly so-called blacks who are paying all this money in taxes. And the tax money that's not used to give back to the aggrieved families of black people or to implement a better justice system to aid the black man. But they can take that money to give this family 19 million to implement all the things that they feel would better suit the needs of the Edomite community when it comes to, as they like to say, what is it? Mental health persons. And that's most prevalent in the Edomite community because everything they do, it's a mental health issue. Everything that the so-called black man does when it comes to crime is because of drugs, or it's because we are animals, savages. Remember, that's what they used to call the so-called Indians, savages. But with them, it's a mental health issue. That's not us. We don't carry ourselves that way. It has to be an instability in the brain. Okay? Yeah. And that's what they feed us. But let's read it some more. It says, as part of the settlement, Sally and Simon Glass also negotiated for changes they hope will prevent another family from suffering a loss like theirs. Yeah, good luck with that. Clare Creek County will establish a crisis response team, and its sheriff's office will train and certify all deputies in crisis intervention, according to documents released by their attorneys. The state of Colorado, which had 3 officers on the scene of Glass's June 11, 2022 killing, in addition to those from local agencies, will create a virtual reality training scenario for the Colorado State Patrol based on the shooting that will focus on de-escalation in stressful situations involving officers from different agencies. There you hear it. So the officers shouldn't be agitated, shouldn't get hyped up, shouldn't be overly aggressive, shouldn't be what can I say? Well, they shouldn't be reacting in a negative way when they see Edomites, especially when they're acting like they have some mental issue. They're only supposed to act that way when it comes to the so-called black man. That's what this is saying. Say the state of Colorado, which had 2 officers on scene of Glass's June 11, 2022 killing, in addition to those from local agencies, will create a virtual reality training scenario for the Colorado State Patrol based on the shooting that will focus on de-escalation in stressful situations involving officers from different agencies. I see. Again, good luck with that. Let's read on. A video message from Simon and Sally Glass will also be shown to state troopers. You see that? They get the money, they get the recognition, they get the apology, they get everything. Even a video message will be implemented in the training. Wow. And the division of gaming officers at the beginning of their active bystander training. The program focuses on encouraging officers to intervene if they think a fellow officer is going too far or needs to step away from an incident. Well, by golly, I hope they are thinking of implementing this when it comes in use to also the so-called black man. And here we see the family, the Glass family. All right, so I guess this would be the mother and the husband, and that would I would assume be the son. Okay? And you see what this Denver Westward is saying. Murder by Colorado deputy, rogue cops. That's what they call them, rogue cops. You don't hear those words used when they kill black people. No, sir. But oh yeah, they're wrong. I mean, I feel sympathy for the family. I feel sympathy for anyone whose life was taken for their family. But that does not change the facts. It does not change the facts. So, yeah, let's look at this little snippet that I have here in relation to that. So, we know this is Derek Chauvin, the policeman accused of the direct murder of our brother George Floyd, as we see here in photos of him kneeling his knee into the neck of brother George Floyd. And look at him. Casually, he has his hands in his pockets. What is he doing? You're putting your full body weight on a man on the ground, handcuffed in his neck without care. Look at, and he's casual, hands in the pocket. He's looking around, talking to his co-workers. Don't even care what's going on with the brother who was underneath his foot. He's not even looking down at him. As we see in this picture from the New York Post, it says Chauvin, 3 ex-cops charged in this incident. And this next picture, the Trustville Tribune, shows Chauvin, say, underway in trial. Look at him in the picture. Still calm. It's like he never did anything. But the Most High be the judge. As I said, we don't get justice on earth. We don't get justice in this time, but our time is coming. This brother was murdered. No reform came, no apology came, no changes came, no money came. Not that I recall. And here we have a look at the officer. He was arrested, tried, convicted, if that's what you call it. He killed a man needlessly, handcuffed. But his system saw it fair to give him a slap on the wrist. 20 years. And we know that's going to be reduced. But where is the fairness? Where is the justice? The Edomite that was killed, his family was rewarded. They were recognized. They were apologized to. They initiated change within the system for a better response to their so-called mental illness problems when dealing with Edomites. And they got the privilege of putting themselves within the system to remind officers, look at us, we are white people. You shouldn't be killing us. You shouldn't be aggressive with us. Oh, we are just having a bad day. Please don't kill us. That's what they got the opportunity to do. When this brother was crying for his mother, nobody heard him, nobody cared. Look at them, all of them there. And this man is kneeling his knee in this brother's neck. And all of them there. And she says, oh, tell officers when they need to step back or when they're committing wrong acts. Nobody remembered to tell these people that. But the Most High will get his justice for his people in due course. In due course, brother. Okay, so let's move on. I have a video here that I found very interesting. So with all that I was saying, this speaks volumes about what I'm talking about. With the way situations are handled, with the disparity between skin color. Okay? So let's look at this video.
Get off the ground! Get off the fucking ground now! Get off the ground! Put your feet, your hands on your back now! Get off the ground! Get off the ground! Get off the ground! You have?
He's telling the officer. Here we see the officer commanding this suspect. He has a weapon drawn on this individual. Now, I don't know what is taking place because it doesn't look like the typical situation when police are dealing with so-called black people. Because this man, this young man looks to be casual, like he doesn't respect the authority that is commanding him to do what he should be doing when he tells him to do it. The officer has a weapon pointed at him and it's like he doesn't care. Is this the instance of the mental instability that they're talking about? Or is this just a lackluster, don't care attitude? Because I'm a white Edomite. But let's finish look at it.
Get on the ground now!
Dude, get on the ground.
Get on the ground!
So you hear the suspect was telling the officer to chill out, relax. Then a bystander, I guess, who was recording, he tells him, dude, get on the ground. Meaning just obey, go down. Had it been a black person, from the second time he commanded him to do something and he didn't do, I mean, I don't know what reason he drew his weapon and is pointing it at this individual. As I said, I don't have the video to say well what happened, but we see where it initiates, where he had already been pointing this weapon at him. Like I say, they are taught to draw these weapons when they feel threatened. I don't know what is the threat that this individual is presenting, what information he would have received, how he portrays this individual to be, or if he knows him. But in fact, he has his weapon drawn and pointing at him. And he keeps telling him, get on the ground. The individual is going, look, and he approaches him. So you see what happens. He ignores him, goes to his car. He could have been going for a firearm. If that was a black man, he would have been dead because he would have put that taser down. Well, first of all, he would have tased him from he began to walk, or from he refused to listen to his commands, he would have tased him. Secondly, him going to that car and going inside, he would have pulled his gun a long time and shot if that was a brother. But he allowed this individual to open the car, and instead of taking his gun to protect himself, he tries to close the door, and this young man pushes him to the ground. Never have I seen anything like this. And so what happened to the video now, you see? Ah, boy, the work of Satan. So for some reason, it stops right there. I don't know why. It wasn't acting that way earlier. But after he would have shot him with the taser, we see other events ensue. But I don't know why the video chooses to stop right there. I don't know what happened since. Forgive me, but The video seems to be acting up. I'll try again one more time to see if we can get it to play. Okay. Let's try this again. For some reason, it does not want to play. And that one does not want to work with us. But let's try one more time. I don't know why. But all praises for another day, another time. We would have a look at that. But for today, that is the end of our broadcast. And I hope I would have given you some information of things taking place in our community, in our lives, with us as a people. So all praises to the Most High. Shalom, Most High in Christ bless. You enjoy your day, Israel.